How good are the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns? It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Turns out all the heavy favorites won. We'll get into all of the ball games. There were only 4 of them. Texas State did a great job of adjusting to the weather and running over and around and through Monroe. And Marshall and JMU with a couple of easy wins as well, trying to keep up with things over in the Sun Belt East. But the Ragin' Cajuns are a really good football team. And I don't mind saying I didn't see this coming. I really didn't. We talked about it before the season, and, we went from, and when I say we, I mean me, went from, are they overrated because of the 8.5 win total, or are they contenders because they're really talented everywhere, but we just don't know about the quarterback position? And we've been through this throughout the season, but they're really good. And I hate to put it on, you know what? We're not gonna do that. It's one loss. They lost to a really good Tulane team. Some off the field issues, I think, caused that. And we're just not going to bring that up any further. But it is a missed opportunity because it was at home. It wasn't like it was at Tulane. It was at home. And I'm not blaming it on a kickoff return. That's ridiculous. Okay. Having said that, it's a really good football team. Although, okay, even from your vermilion colored glasses, once again, the Cajuns got a lot of things going their way in this game. All right. It starts off with a Tyrone Lewis interception, right? 2 Cajuns bump into each other. Lewis ends up on his back. The ball falls into his lap. Okay. It's a good job getting hands on the ball, but a little bit lucky that it falls into your lap. All right. Then this is where the game changed, and Arkansas State hadn't done anything yet, so they would still have to have done something afterwards. But the Cajuns are leading 10-0. They're at about midfield. Ben Wooldridge takes off and runs. I think it was second down and setting it up for a short third down. He fumbles the ball. Somehow, some way, Terrence Carter falls on it and recovers instead of Arkansas State. What happens on the next play from scrimmage? Draylen Washington, 46-yard touchdown run. So instead of Arkansas State recovering the ball at midfield down 10-0, it's 17-0. Ensuing possession, Arkansas State gets 1 first down. They punt after 3 more plays, and then the Cajuns get it back. They have a 5-play drive for a touchdown after Jacob Bernard, a good punt return, makes it 24-0. So this game was 10-0 with a Ben Wooldridge fumble at about the 13-minute mark of the second quarter. At the 7:23 mark, so less than 6 minutes in game time, it went from 10-0 to 24-0, and that was all she wrote. Cajuns put up another touchdown. Arkansas State gets 1 to end the half. They did get 1 to end the game as well. But the Cajuns, at one point in time, the Cajuns were so dominating this game. Kenny Almendaris, their place kicker, who set the all-time leading scoring mark for Ragin' Cajuns player, breaking former All-Sun Belt Player of the Year Eli McGuire's record. Kenny Almendaris had 13 points. Arkansas State had 12. That's how much the Cajuns were dominating. Arkansas State did amass 401 yards. All right, but again, almost 200 of that comes at the end of the first half when it's 31-0. Starters were in. Comes at the end of the game when the starters were not in. But at the same time, the starters weren't in for Arkansas State. So it is what it is. This team is really good. They're going to need some help. Even Cajun fans realize, Boise State's undefeated. Nevada almost knocked them off on Saturday. Army's probably going to have to lose, right? We'll see if the midshipmen can help out the Cajuns. Cajuns still didn't crack the top 25. They are top 30, which is pretty good in its own right. But I thought they had to do what they did last night or Sunday night. We'll try that again. Do what they had to do on Saturday night to get in the top 25, and it didn't work. These other games were on national TV, and people were watching LSU, Alabama, and Cajuns fans and Arkansas State fans are watching this ball game, and Sunbelt podcast hosts. That's who's watching that ball game. So if that game was on a Thursday night, perchance, and it got to 55-19, they may have gotten some more votes. I'm not kidding you. They may have gotten some more votes for top 25 because that's as dominating performance as the Cajuns have had, as far as I'm concerned, this year. We've talked about this. They have gotten by with some breaks going their way, right? They didn't play all that well against Southern Miss, not offensively, but defensively, they were outstanding. A couple calls go against Southern Miss. Cajuns win by 10, right? Couldn't quite put away Wake Forest, have to kick a field goal instead of putting a touchdown on the board or ending the game, kicking a field goal. Wake Forest field goal hits the upright. Didn't play all that well against App State. App State, 5 turnovers. Cajuns win by 10. They do go on the road and beat Coastal. They need a great play by Ben Woldridge and Terrence Carter. Again, if Terrence Carter, well, that was Schultz may have covered on that one because he stayed on his feet and ended up in the end zone instead of falling down, and maybe the time runs out before the Cajuns can score. And they did more than enough against Texas State, but again, couldn't put it away when you wanted a touchdown. You kicked a field goal, made it a one-score ball game, tipped pass, interception, and the Cajuns, win that ball game. So in this game was not close. All right. And for some reason, the line kept on going down, right? It was 17, 16 and a half. I ended up getting it at 14 and a half. By the time Saturday rolled around, it was 14 and a half points. And that was a line covered basically at half. The Cajuns will be heavily favored throughout the rest of the season. They have South Alabama coming up. That's an interesting matchup because it is the number 1 offense, the Cajuns, yardage-wise, and the number 2 offense, yardage-wise, South Alabama, matching up next Saturday this Saturday, as the case may be, in Lafayette. They will take on Troy. They'll be heavily favored against the Trojans. Both those games are at home. They will wrap up against ULM. Now, that ULM game, it's not going to be sneaky, right? The only thing is the Cajuns may have clinched the Sunbelt West at that point in time. They may need that ball game to clinch hosting the Sunbelt Championship. That may be in the bag by then as well. But you're certainly not, it's not going to be a trap game. It can't be a trap game. You can finish off, if it gets that far without losing, a perfect Sunbelt season. You're certainly, if you're not in the top 25 by that point in time, you're very well going to be very close. It's just sneaky because all of a sudden ULM may need that ball game to go bowling, right? They're going to do everything they can to show out and show up in that ball game because they may need that one to save their season, which was looking so promising just 3 weeks ago. But, just look at some of the statistics, why this team is so good. Ben Woldridge didn't have, these are not, oh my gosh, look at these numbers. They just aren't. Ben Woldridge was 17 to 26, 264 with a touchdown. Pretty good numbers, but that's not like, 25 of 30 for, 350 and 3 touchdowns. No. Draylon Washington had a nice ball game, 8 carries, 123 yards. Bill Davis, 11 carries, 65 yards. A 94-yard touchdown was called back because of holding. Zylan Perry had a nice touchdown, 8 carries, 59 yards. Cajuns averaged 8.7 yards a carry. Wow. But this is why the Cajuns offense is so effective. 12 different receivers caught passes. I think Woldridge threw to 9 different receivers. It's unbelievable. Cajuns don't have a receiver in the top 10 in the conference in receptions. They have 2 in the top 20, and their number 1 receiver is their tight end, of course, Terrence Carter, Lance Legendre, is the second one. So is it Lance Lejeune? He is the second wide receiver in terms of receptions, second receiver for the Cajuns. And the defense is just as good. The defense is outstanding. Arkansas State didn't get anything going until it was 31-0. They did put, I think, points on the board in the second half before the Cajuns did. Well, a touchdown anyways before the Cajuns scored a touchdown. But I just didn't see this season coming for the Cajuns. They very well could, if not should, end up 11-1 and hosting the Sun Belt Championship. There's another podcast out there wondering about Cajuns fans. There may have been a former host on the radio station, a couple of different stations, always wondering about that. Now, all of a sudden, I seem to be listening to my shows like 4, 5, 6 years later. So it is crazy to hear that. Anyway, so hopefully that was the other thing. Hopefully they got to sell out half a stadium for the Sun Belt Championship game, right? That can't be not a thing, right? It's raining. LSU's playing at the same time. They didn't have as many people as they should have, but hopefully they'll take care of that for the Sun Belt Championship. They still have 2 more games to go at home. South Alabama coming in, Troy coming in. They do finish up at ULM. All right, let's take a timeout. Hey, how about Texas State? We questioned if they were mature enough to beat Monroe, and narrator, they were. We'll talk about the Bobcats' win over the Warhawks right after I tell you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. Did win the Cajuns game. That's all I won this weekend. It is what it is. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Texas State goes into Monroe and handles the Warhawks. Rain made it an issue, and Texas State won this ball game passing 14 times. They ran 54 times. They ran for 326 yards. Jordan McLeod with a bad wheel, bad ankle, started the ball game, but Brad Jackson comes in, 17 carries, 126 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Not all that proficient passing, 4 of 9 for 16 yards. But Texas State they were like, we're just going to run it at Monroe. And basically they were announcing over the line of scrimmage, hey, we're running right, we're running left, we're running right at you. You can't stop us. And Monroe did not. Jordan McLeod, for his time in there, 4 out of 5, 56 yards and 1 touchdown pass. He did manage to carry twice for no yards and a touchdown. That's a neat stat line. Don't see that very often. But again, Brad Jackson averaging almost 7.5 yards a carry. Deion Hankins averaging almost 7.5 yards a carry. He had a touchdown, 16 carries, 117 yards. So let's match this up offensively. By the way, Texas State won the ball game 38-17. Only about 120 yards difference offensively, but it doesn't feel like it was that close. Not at all, especially when you're doing 326 yards rushing for Texas State and 159 yards rushing for ULM. ULM was behind all game long. They tried passing it for 119 yards, and I can understand what Bryant Vincent was doing, although pulling a idea from G.J. Kinney's book at this point in time, not necessarily what I would have done, because you would have needed to stop. So both teams get a possession and both teams punt. Texas State then scores a touchdown on a 9-play, 76-yard drive. It's 7-0. ULM, 3 and out. They punt. And then Texas State punts, but then ULM 3 and out as well. So ULM has had the ball 9 times. They've had the ball 3 times, and they've ran 9 offensive plays. Not great. So then Texas State scores a 1-play touchdown pass on Jordan McLeod finding a Cole Wilson. That may have been it for Jordan McLeod. Made it 14-0 Texas State. But ULM tried to, go deep in their own territory. On 4th and 3, Hunter Herring ran for 1 yard, and that handed the ball back over to Texas State. That made it 21-0. And for all intents and purposes, that was the ball game. It was 28-0 at half. ULM did make it. They got it to 28-14, but they traded field goals, and obviously that's not going to help very much. Texas State put it away with a touchdown late, 38-17. That's got to feel good for the Bobcats because they honestly have not played very well at all, right? They lost at home to the Cajuns. They lost on the road to Old Dominion. They did play well against Arkansas State. I didn't think they played well versus Troy a month ago. So they have played, now they have a nice win under their belt. I wonder if the game plan changed from what it was all week long to we got this rainstorm. We're just going to run the football. All right. Be interesting to hear those comments. And now you got to be concerned with Monroe and how they are going to finish up. They do not have an easy schedule whatsoever. All right. They started out 5-1. Is that correct? 5-1. They have lost to South Alabama, where they got embarrassed. They lost to Marshall, where they competed, and they lost to Texas State, where they fell behind 28-0. They're at Auburn. A month ago, I would have said, watch out, Tigers. I can't imagine that's going to be a problem. They're just going to hand the ball off to Jarquez Hunter. All right. They have Arkansas State, which plays much better at home than they do on the road. And they are at home for that ball game. And then they're finishing up at home against the Cajuns. So they have 2 road games, which they will not be favored in. And then they're hosting the Cajuns, which they will not be favored in. Can they get one more win to go bowling? All right. And all those teams need it badly. The last thing Hugh Freeze needs is to lose to Monroe. Arkansas State still has a chance at a bowl game, so they need to win that ball game. And the Cajuns are going to want it, obviously, for whatever chance they have at a playoff, but more along the lines even if you can't get into the playoff, if the Cajuns finish the top 20 team, if the Cajuns win out, aren't they going to be a top 20 team? I would think they would be a top 20 team if they finish the season 13-1, 11-1, win the Sun Belt Championship, 12-1, and win a bowl game 13-1. You probably get a pretty good opponent in that bowl game. That's the other thing. You may not get a group of 5 team in that situation. You may actually get a Power 5 team, which is what usually the Cajuns want. So we'll see what happens there. So give credit to Texas State, probably changed on the fly. And we're wondering if Monroe can manage to get that one more win. Still love what Bryant Vincent has done. They need a passing game. That's been an issue all year long. And, the defense can only do so much when the offense can't get a first down in the first 4 possessions of the game. All right, that's going to be an issue. And obviously, Texas State was out to stop Ahmad Hardy, and they did. They absolutely did. All right, let's take a time out. We'll go over to the Sun Belt East. Marshall and JMU with easy victories. We'll talk about that when we come back after I tell you about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Also, you can go to concerts. You can go to other shows. It's not just sports. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can get your priority Game Time Picks. Curation makes it easier to save more money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. All in pricing. You toggle this feature in the app and it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a great panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and you get that lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And you get that Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Over in the East, Marshall and JMU rolled. Marshall was almost a 2-touchdown favorite against Southern Miss, and obviously Southern Miss, fired their head coach and just has been a dismal season. They fall to 1-8, 0-5 in the conference. Marshall, their most complete game of the year, 37-3 over Southern Miss. Braylon Braxton, 14 out of 21, 220 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Ethan Payne rushes 13 times for 104 yards and a touchdown. Braxton also rushed for 13 times. He had a touchdown on the ground. Tyshawn Chapman also had a touchdown. And a lot like the Cajuns, Braxton spreading it around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different Thundering Herd receivers with a reception. On the other side, Southern Miss just can't get an offense going. Ethan Crawford, 5 out of 18 for 70 yards, 3 interceptions. He did run it 10 times, but he lost 21 yards, so that's going to be sacks. Rodriguez Clark ran the ball 8 times for 61 yards. He led Southern Miss in rushing. Jalen Washington, 10 carries, 37 yards. Just not a great season for Southern Miss whatsoever. Whoever is the next coach, they got to hit on a quarterback, whether that's Ethan Crawford or whatever the case is. You can't swing and miss on a quarterback. And that's exactly the issues that Southern Miss has had under the Fighting Will Halls. Right? Marshall seems to have found their quarterback in Braylon Braxton. Georgia State, which we'll get to, seems to have found their quarterback in Zach Gibson. Right? The Cajuns, as we mentioned time and time again, when Billy Napier was there, he had, for the final 3 years, he had one starting quarterback every game, Levi Lewis. Mike Desimo takes over. They had 3 starting quarterbacks last year, and they had 2 starting quarterbacks the year before with a third one play. This year, it's all been Ben Woldridge, who right now is in line to be your Sun Belt Player of the Year. You can't swing and miss on the quarterback. It doesn't have to be in the Sun Belt. Ask Mike Norvell with Florida State. It is. You can't swing and miss on the quarterback. We'll see what happens next time around. Good example of not swinging and missing on the quarterback is James Madison. All right, they stuck with Alonzo Barnett. The third, they get an easy win over Georgia State, 38-7. This game was 28-7 at half. Barnett, 20 out of 30, 241 yards, 3 touchdowns. Certainly in the conversation for Player of the Year, and a lot of guys. Gio Lopez is in the conversation. Alonzo Barnett's in the conversation. Jordan McLeod is in the conversation. These MVPs usually go to the best player on the best team. And right now, that's Ben Woldridge with the Cajuns. Although you probably could make an argument for somebody on that offensive line or the running backs, but that's a different story. Let's see here. George Pettaway, 13 carries, 95 yards, averaging more than 7 yards a carry. He scored a touchdown. Wayne Knight had a touchdown on the ground. Omarion Dollison scored a touchdown catching. So did Taylor Thompson and Wayne Knight. Yamir Knight led the team with 4 catches, 65 yards. On the other side, again, Zach Gibson, not a whole lot of explosiveness, but 24 out of 37, 213 yards, 1 touchdown. Georgia State could not run the football at all. 27 carries, 46 yards. Really good defense by JMU. And they did a good job of taking Ted Hurst out of the game. 1 catch for 9 yards, although that was the lone touchdown. Dorian Fleming had 3 catches, 54 yards. P.D. Tucker had 5 catches, and Michael Dukes had 6 catches. Again, I think Georgia State has found their quarterback that allows you to build around him, get an offensive line, getting a running attack, and getting some receivers. If you keep on swinging and missing with the quarterback and you keep on changing, that never settles down. And in this era of transfer portal and NIL, you just can't swing and miss on the quarterback. So if Georgia State has that problem fixed and they only played 1 and you're sticking with Zach Gibson, you could be in good shape. All right. So you need 2, you need 3, right? For the backup, right? I mean, Dexter Williams II, although he's leaving Georgia Southern, I put in there he's into the portal. He's technically, someone called me out, but that's okay because the portal's not open. He's technically redshirting for the rest of the year, then we'll go in the portal. So my bad for putting it the way that I did. But you need a Dexter Williams, right? The Cajuns needed Chandler Fields. You need the backup quarterback to be able to come in, even if it's for a couple of plays, but it might be for, he may tweak an ankle that he'll be fine the next week, but he can't play that game at that immediate moment. So you need more than 1 quarterback, but you need to have the quarterback who's gonna play. All right. And it feels like, even Arkansas State feels like they got their guy. It's a little bit of a sophomore slump. Those recruits still, had Butch Jones had some really good recruiting classes. They'll mature. All right. And I think they got their guy. Good bet they're going to have him for 2 more years. And Arkansas State's in good hands. All right. I think that, despite the 55-19 loss to the Cajuns. One of those games spun out of control, changed in a matter of seconds, or in this case, just less than 6 minutes, where it went from 10-0 to 24-0. All right, let's check out the standings, shall we? Cajuns are in control in the West. They're 5-0. Texas State is 3-2. Arkansas State is 3-2. Cajuns actually have a 2.5 game on those teams because they've beaten both of them. Now, South Alabama is 3-2, and they haven't played the Cajuns yet. So if somehow South Alabama goes into Cajun Field and beats the Cajuns, they'll just be 1 game back. All right. I'm not going to get into tiebreakers with the other schools just yet, but they would be 1 game back of the Cajuns. All right. I get, again, my head hurt. If we go to 3 or 4-way tiebreaker, first of all, the Cajuns collapse. And second of all, that's going to make my head hurt even worse. All right. So we don't want to be talking about tiebreakers in any stretch of the imagination. Monroe is 3-3. Troy 1-4, although coming off their first win of the Sun Belt season. And Southern Miss drops to 0-5. Georgia Southern and Marshall are tied atop the Sun Belt Conference East at 4-1, although Georgia Southern has the tiebreaker because they beat Marshall, or Marshall beat Marshall, as the case may be. But obviously, Georgia Southern took down the Thundering Herd, so they win the tiebreaker. Old Dominion had the top spot. They lost. They're 3-2. James Madison kind of lurking. They're 3-2. Coastal Carolina with a big win. Not lurking so much for a Sun Belt title, but they're 1 win away from going bowling, and they get Georgia Southern at home. So Coastal Carolina is going to have something to say about who wins the Sun Belt East and the Sun Belt Championship, for that fact of the matter. App State did not look very good. They're 2-4. We'll see. I mean, they struggled. They struggled in a big way this past week, and it's once again, it's on national TV. I'm afraid what's going to happen there. It appears to be inevitable. We'll see. And then you have Georgia State still trying to build, first-year coach. And I'm going to defend first-year coaches here because I'm going to get caught up in it as well. We're talking about Del McGee, Georgia State 0-5, 2-7. Sometimes we forget these guys are doing this for the first time, right? Maybe not Del McGee because he's been a head coach. But something like my guy, Fran Brown from Syracuse, he said, look, I got out-coached today by Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien's been a pro coach and a big-time college football coach. Fran Brown hasn't even been a coordinator before. And I don't think he's ever been a head coach before. All right. See Libby Jeff on how hard it is to be a head coach when you've never been a head coach before. So Del McGee getting his first taste of being a head coach on the college level. Again, I think he's got his quarterback. He's got a good recruiting class coming in. You can't be 0-5 and 2-7 next year is all I'm saying. All right. So that no one's saying you got to be undefeated and winning a Sun Belt championship, but that's got to be closer to 500 than it is to what it is now. But sometimes, and I'm the first person to say this, why isn't the coach doing this? Why isn't the coach doing that? He's never done it before. I don't care how much football he knows. Until you're in that mix, you don't know. And again, a guy like Fran Brown admitted that Bill O'Brien outcoached him, and you learn from it and then move on. All right. All right. We'll get more into basketball. By the way, Arkansas State gave Alabama all they could handle. That was a tie ball game with 7 minutes left to go, maybe 6. Now, Alabama outscored them 20-11 at that point in time. Kobe Julian hasn't found a shot. He hits 2 more shots. I know they lost by like 9, but he hits 2 more shots. It's a different ball game. So we'll keep an eye on that Arkansas State team. A couple other teams, ODU and Georgia State, did get blown out by that Power 5 opponents. We will do more basketball this week. All right, we're over 1,600 subscribers. Really appreciate it. We're trying to do more shorts and more reels and stuff like that on social media. I do appreciate it. You guys are watching because we had another record-setting week. And hopefully we'll have our 3rd record-setting month in terms of views. Please like and share the videos that you see on Facebook. If it is on X, please repost. It is a big help. All right. Apparently the voice is going. So I'm going to call it a night. Thanks very much. You've been listening and watching to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday.